Hey y'all, it's Bailey with Reclaim Grace. I'm so happy you clicked on this video. I have a couple thrift to treasure projects and an awesome furniture flip for y'all. Y'all have been wanting to see a full video of like a before and after furniture makeover. So here it is. I hope y'all enjoy it. Y'all let me know what y'all think, and we're going to get started right now. Here is our first project, a thrifted frame I picked up for $2. We're going to be removing everything inside of it, so I need to get this hanging hardware off and that paper backing off the back of the frames so we can get to the staples. And man, y'all, there were so many staples holding that center panel in, and they were so hard to get out that I broke my glass trying to remove them. So I ended up having to throw the glass away, and I had planned on reusing it, but it's not a big deal. I threw it away and we will just continue on with a different plan. Here is the star of the show. Y'all look at this needlework. It is gorgeous. It's actually signed on the back. I paid $1 for this at the thrift store, and I hunted for a frame to put it in, and so that's why we're working on this frame. So we're going to be reusing this mat. I'm going to use a plastic scraper and very carefully pry the mat away from that center panel. We are actually going to be painting the mat, and I'm going to use Fusion's Coal Black all along the mat, and I'm actually going to go a little ways into that center part because my cross stitch artwork is a little bit smaller than the mat, so we need to make sure that area is black as well. And I went ahead and applied 2 coats of this black paint. Next, I'm going to give our frame a few good coats of that same black paint. Now I have the center panel laying on my work surface, and I have everything positioned correctly, and I'm going to hot glue the needle point, or is this cross stitch, needle point, whatever, this gorgeous needlework onto the center panel, and then I'm going to position my mat and get that glued down also. Here I have some new to me metal gold paint. This is Metal Pigment and Pigment Fix. I ordered this from Ellen-J's Goods website. I always see her using this, and it's always gorgeous, so I wanted to try it out. I just mixed it up like the directions calls for, and y'all, this is gorgeous. I was not prepared for how bright this antique gold was going to be. So we have to fix that a little later, but I went ahead and applied just 1 coat to our frame. The coverage, y'all, the coverage with this product was amazing. I mixed up way too much. So just keep that in mind if you're using it. So now our frame is painted. We're going to get our artwork secured by using one of my favorite tools in my workshop. This is a framing gun that if you upcycle a lot of frames, this is a must-have. It's in my Amazon store, linked in the description box. So here is how we're looking after everything's together, and this was going to be my finished project. But like I said, that gold was just too gold for me. So I brought out my Fusion Coal Black paint again, and I'm painting a very light layer on top of that gold paint. And then I'm going to come in immediately, working a section at a time with a baby wipe, and start dabbing and wiping that black paint away. And this is just going to age it up, tone it down just a little, and I like the way this looks a lot better. And that is all for this project. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this one. I'm going to price it for $47. Our second project is a pretty simple one. I picked up this vase from a church yard sale for $1. It's not awful the way it is, but I just envisioned it a little bit different. So we're going to start off by giving it a good clean inside and out. We are going to be using this gorgeous terracotta color. This is Iron Clay by Fusion. This is one of their newer colors in the all-in-one paint. It reminds me of like a muted terracotta. I really like it, and I just envisioned this vase being that color, and it's going to go super well with our next project. So I'm just dabbing and stippling all over the outside of the vase. I'm going to get that top rim of the vase as well, and we're going to leave the inside alone because it's actually finished and sealed already. I did 2 coats of that iron clay color and let it fully dry, and here is how we're looking. Now we're going to bring some age to it by adding a paint wash. We're going to use some DIY paint. This is vintage linen, and I misted my project well, and we're just going to add a thin layer of this white paint, working in sections, getting it into all the nooks and crannies of that gorgeous detail on the front of the vase. And then we're going to use a baby wipe and some blue shop towels to just pull back some of that paint. I pressed a little too hard right there where you see me touching, so I had to come back in with just a little bit more paint. I just dabbed it on that area, zapped it dry with my heat gun, and then just took that paint wash and went back over it again, and it's like it never happened. I'm going to continue this vase using, this method, wetting the surface really well and then applying the thin layer of paint, and then blotting and wiping back the excess paint until I like the way it looks. And that's it for this one. I think it looks like aged terracotta. I like the way it looks. I'm going to price this one for $16.95, and that does not include the greenery. Here is our next project. I've had so many of y'all want a furniture flip video, so I really hope y'all enjoy this process. It was a lot of work. We're starting off with this piece. I paid $20 for it. It's an old piece. It has lots of damage. This veneer was peeling off everywhere. So lots of veneer work, some damage to the corners. This middle drawer right there was not right, so we had to do some work on the actual inside of the piece. There's a cute shot of Roscoe. It comes with a mirror and the little spindle mirror holder that sits on the top of the dresser. So here is what we're working with. Like I said, this thing was filthy. So this went through a few layers or a few different processes of cleaning. Our first step of cleaning is just to get the dust and dirt off. I just used some Windex and a shop towel and gave it a quick wipe down this go round. Our next round of cleaning is a little bit more intentional. This is some Dawn and some hot water and a new fresh rag. And this is where I really get to know the piece I'm working on. I'm scrubbing every nook and cranny, touching every surface, and just getting to know the piece. Like, where is the damage at? Getting an idea of what I'm going to work on next. So it's just kind of get an idea of the process. So now we need to remove the hardware. I'm going to put the screws back into the hardware because I don't want to lose it, and we're going to be reusing these later on. So I'm going to set them to the side, and then we're going to start cleaning out the drawers and fixing the drawers themselves. I always keep a fat paintbrush handy to use as a dusting brush. I can get into the corners well with the brush and get all the spider webs and, everything that's could be on this piece. And as I'm taking these drawers out, I'm going to label them so I know exactly where they go back. These older pieces, sometimes the drawers are made to fit in certain drawer openings, if that makes sense. So I'm working on a drawer at a time, and this veneer on the front of the drawer was coming off on the inside. So I just took my metal scraper and got rid of all that peeling veneer, and actually all of it came off, so it made it look a lot cleaner. I didn't have to do much sanding to get rid of any veneer. So now we need to fix all the drawers. This one was wobbling, so that's no good. I'm going to use a hammer to just unloosen the joint. It came right apart. Dust off all, the areas before we put some more glue down in there. I'm going to put the joint back together and add a few brad nails to hold it together while that glue dries so I can keep on working. Give it another shimmy test, and that is a lot better. One of the large drawers, the veneer was coming off on the inside of that drawer as well, so I'm going to get rid of all that veneer, and it was just peeling off. This was super satisfying. Now moving on to that same drawer, just the drawer face itself, I'm going to peel up this veneer, and since this drawer didn't have any like engraved details, I'm going to go ahead and peel off all the veneer. It was coming off super easily, and I'm actually going to take those bigger pieces and put them in my stash so I can use them on another furniture flip as some, veneer pieces. So I'm taking my dusting brush to dust the inside. I'm holding my breath as I'm doing this, and I was like, this is not the best way. So I grab my vacuum cleaner, and we're going to get all the dust bunnies and spider webs out from the inside of the dresser. And now we're moving on to cleaning the mirror. Y'all, this is like jumping back and forth. I'm showing you the process as I'm working on it. We cleaned up the spindles, and here we're moving back to one of the smaller drawers. We're actually going to be gluing this veneer down with a wood glue syringe. You get these on Amazon. Fill them up with whatever wood glue you like to use, and it gets in really tight spaces. The reason I did not peel this veneer off is because of that engraved detail in the center. I didn't want to lose that detail. I'm going to use painter's tape to hold that veneer down as it's drying and just put a little squeeze clamp on it. Right now, you are looking on the inside side of the dresser. I have cut 2 small pieces of plywood, just scrap plywood. I'm going to glue on right here on one of the drawer guides. I'm going to show y'all why I'm doing this in a later step, but I need these 2 pieces down and dry before I can come back and add the piece I really need. So as that's drying, I'm moving on to work on the outside side. And I'm going to glue this veneer down and tape it, but the other side, I didn't worry about gluing the veneer down. I just ripped it off. I didn't feel like waiting for the glue to dry. This is that side I'm referring to. So I just ripped that veneer off, and we're going to use a Bondo to fill in those voids. Bondo is a 2-part component. It comes with that cream and the cream hardener. You just need a very small amount of that darker blue hardener, and you mix it in until you have one solid color, and you need to work fast. This stuff cures to sand in about 10 minutes. So it cures to be able to spread in about 2 minutes. So you need to work fast. Work in sections if you need to so you don't mix up too much. But I'm just using a large popsicle stick to spread it around so I don't have to worry about cleaning my metal scrapers off. We jump back to the opposite side. I'm going to remove that tape and apply some Bondo to those areas as well. Now we're back on the inside. I hope this isn't confusing for y'all, us jumping around like this. It was really hard to edit. So I'm adding glue on top of those pieces of plywood that we added earlier, adding a good amount of glue, and then I'm taking this shim, this really thin piece of wood, and I'm going to glue and clamp it to the top of those plywood pieces. As I'm showing you here, I'm missing the bottom of the L, if that makes sense. What the actual bottom of the drawer glides on. This piece right here, I was missing on that side, and I could not take the actual glide out because of how it was nailed into the piece. It would really damage the piece, so this was the only method I could figure out of how to fix it. So now I'm going to put the drawer back in and see if it was any better, and y'all, it worked. So my insane, I don't know, it looks a little funny in there, but it worked and it's functional, and that's all we need. So now our Bondo is dry. We're going to start sanding that flat. I'm using some 120 grit sandpaper. I have my doors open here with a mask on, and Roscoe's outside licking his bone, eating his bone, so he's not in the workshop with me. And we're going to go ahead and give the rest of this side a good scuff sand as well. I love a two-toned dresser, so the legs are going to stay raw wood, so we need to sand that finish off, and I'm going to use my Surf Prep sander with a foam abrasive pad on it. This just gives it a little cushion so you don't sand down all the details. Of course, we had to do some hand sanding as well, but we're just going to sand all this finish and stain off both of the front legs. We're going to go ahead and sand these really rough drawers. These are our bottom two large drawers where we removed all the veneer off the front of them. They were very rough, so we needed to smooth those out. And then we're moving on to the little drawers. I forgot to Bondo these while I was Bondoing everything else, so we're going to go ahead and get those voids filled in with some Bondo and set them to the side and let them dry. I decided to add a layer of wood grain filler to the top of these two large drawers that I removed the veneer off of. The wood grain was very prominent in these, so I just wanted to fill them in a little bit. I was not a fan of this product. Next time I'll just use Bondo. I had a few shallow voids on the sides of our dresser, so I'm just going to use some of this glazing compound to fill those in. This is a really cool product. It dries in within 5 minutes and it's super durable as well. Moving on to scuff sanding the mirror, I'm using my Surf Prep with my foam abrasive pad on it so I don't mess up all those gorgeous curves and details. Then I'm using a piece of sandpaper by hand to work up to the mirror with a piece of paper I'm using as a protective measure so I don't scratch the mirror as I'm sanding. And the finish was just falling off these pieces. So that means you got to remove all the finish. If you want your paint to stay, you got to get rid of the felling finish. So this was a lot of sanding. Now I'm working on the top of the dresser. I started off with a 120 grit sandpaper and it wasn't doing much. So I switched over to a 80 grit and this was really starting to take it off. So I just proceeded with an 80 grit to remove all that finish and stain from the top. We have to do a small repair right here. Whenever I picked up the piece, this was already detached. So I'm just going to use some wood glue to get this back fixed. And I'm just going to use a clamp to make sure we have a good even pressure there. Wipe away any glue and just double check that it's square. And I'm going to set that to the side and let it dry and jump back to our smaller drawers and sand off that excess Bondo and sand the rest of the drawers as well. And after all that work, here is what we're looking like. So all our repairs are done. Prep work is the key, y'all, for a durable finish, for your pieces to be fully repaired. It's a lot of work sometimes. So now I'm just dusting off the piece. I'm just making sure everything is dust free before we move on to our next step. I'm going to get this mirror taped up and protected, and then we're going to start sealing this raw wood with a primer. I like to use shellac. This dries very quickly and it just seals all the wood. We have Bondo, stained wood, raw wood. So we have several different finishes going on. So we need them to be even and uniform before we come on with our paint. So I'm going to apply 3 layers of this shellac primer, and in between each layer I'm going to come in and do a very light sanding just to smooth out any bumps and lumps from spraying the primer on. As I'm spraying the primer, I'm not going to go over the 2 front legs nor the top. I'm going to leave that raw and natural for the moment. Now let's start painting. We're using that same iron clay all-in-one fusion paint, that muted terracotta color, for almost the whole piece. We're going to leave some wood elements. I really wanted to leave this mirror natural wood element, but it was just too tough to sand all the stain and finish off. So we're going to start off by painting the mirror, and then we're going to jump over and start painting the dresser. This paint went on beautifully. I only needed to do 2 coats and it laid perfect over the primed surface since we used the shellac. It wasn't picking up any funny texture like you get sometimes whenever you have multiple surfaces going on a repaired piece like this. It was gorgeous. If you're interested in any of this paint, I'm going to leave my friends Emily from J. Bowen and Company's website down below. She sells this paint and she can hook you right on up. Now let's tint our top. I'm using some chocolate fusion paint. I diluted that about 50% with water, and I'm going to mist this raw top first, and then we're going to start applying our paint wash. Don't be scared. I know it looks purple. I know it does, but that's just how it looks whenever it's watered down like it is. It will dry chocolatey brown. Trust me, it scared me a little bit at first too. Well, make sure I hit those edges as well, and I like to do this after I have my first coat of paint on the dresser applied. In case I get any drips, it's not on top of my final coat on the dresser. Once I get it applied evenly, I'm going to take a few blue shop towels and wipe in the direction of the wood grain and pull back all that excess paint. I'm going to apply that same wash to both of the front legs as well. Now that we have 2 coats of paint on our piece and it's fully dry, we're going to do a little bit of distressing. This is an older piece. I don't want it to look brand new, so I'm going to hit some of those high points and some of the edges and bring back some of that wood look. Now, Fusion paint does not need a top coat. I just wanted to add this for some character and a little bit of extra protection. I'm adding some Fusion aging wax all over the piece. I'm going to work in sections. I did the front of the dresser first, and then I'm going to use a shop towel and buff off the excess wax, and then I'll move on to doing the side, the legs also, and that really deepened the wood down there. So I was like, wow, I really, really like the way that looked. So I decided to do the top of the dresser the same way. And man, that was a game changer. I'm a little ahead of myself right here, but you'll see in just a few moments. I love how this aging wax is deepening up that chocolate wash that we applied to the top of the piece. It is the perfect brown tone to match with this muted terracotta color. And it turned out so buttery smooth. I really, really enjoyed this process. I'll be doing this technique again. Make sure you buff all that extra wax off though. I'm moving on to waxing the mirror frame and the spindle holder that holds the mirror, and then we will buff off all that excess wax as well. We are on the short rows now, y'all. We're going to remove that tape, get that mirror cleaned up. Sometimes you have a little bit of paint underneath the tape. You just use a scraper and clean up the glass. And I'm adding some of that leftover gold paint from our first project, just a light dry brush on the hardware to bring out the details in them. And then we will let them dry before we install them on our dresser. Our last few steps are just some simple tricks. When you're working on a vintage dresser, the drawers like to stick and they don't slide well. If you add a little bit of this Howard's feed-in wax just on the inside of the dresser and on the bottom of your drawer, they will slide in like they're brand new. And plus, this stuff smells so good. That's why Roscoe was all up in there. He thought it was food. So now we're going to attach our hardware back on our piece, and then we're going to take that same Howard's feed-in wax and just put them on all the leftover wood, the wood areas. So on the side of the drawers, on the inside of the drawers, on the bottom of the drawers, and this will just give that, it's very old dry wood, a really good drink. And it really just improves the look of the wood once you apply this wax over it. I'll let that sit up there for a couple hours, and then I'll come back in and wipe away any excess wax. The last thing we need to do is attach the mirror, and this project is done. Man, what a journey this one was. It was a whole lot of work, but it was worth it to save this piece from going to the landfill. I'm going to price this one for probably $350. I'm going to at least start there with the amount of time I have into it. And y'all check out these AI photos. I just uploaded a picture of the finished project and asked AI to take out the background and improve the lighting. And I wish I could take pictures like this. Either way, y'all let me know what y'all think about this furniture flip, and what did y'all think about the other 2 projects in today's video. Y'all let me know which project is your favorite down below, and if you got any inspiration from today's video, hit that like button and consider subscribing if you have not already. Be sure to check out my new website. That information is linked down below, but it's reclaimgrace.squarespace.com. I have uploaded lots of new items up there and plan on adding some of my made over items very soon in the next couple of days. So y'all keep an eye out for that, and I'll talk to y'all in the comments. Bye.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.